Hello, everyone. This is the uh, tutorial for audiovisual cross-modal video generation task. I'm Lily Chen from University of Rochester. So cross-modal audiovisual perception has been a long-lasting topic in psychology and in neurology, and various studies have discovered strong correlations in human perception of auditory and visual stimulus. Despite the work on computational multimodal modeling, the problem of cross-modal audiovisual generation has not been systematically studied in the previous literatures. So in this tutorial, we are going to see the task itself and see the application and talk about the challenges and unsolved problems of cross-modal audiovisual generation task. So first, let's talk about the task itself. So we have two different modalities. We have audio, we have visual. And from audio, we can actually get the audio representation. Specifically, when we only focus on talking avatar, human talking avatars, audio representation actually contains the information that what is your facial movements, like how would you move face, right? For example, your audio actually contains the information of your lip movements, also contain some information of your facial expressions. And also we would also give you some visual images, for example, the reference images, like how you looks like. So those visual representation would give you the source of your appearance information, right? And then once you extract the facial movements from the audio and you got the appearance information from your visual, then you can fuse them together to generate this facial animation. And that is the task itself, audiovisual generation task. And actually solving this task is critical to enabling many applications. For example, it can benefit the research of adversarial attacks in security, or provide, for example, we can provide more training samples for supervised learning approaches. For example, recently we have a lot of deepfake news or videos, right? And we want to improve the detection algorithm, which means we need to have some better data for those detection algorithms. So once we can provide those synthetic data for adversarial attack defense networks, we can get better results for those fake news detections. And also we can also for example, liberating from over the cell phone audio for hearing impaired people. We can generate virtual characters with synchronized facial movements to speech audio for movies, games, or other applications, right? And also it's quite critical to real world applications, such as enhancing speech comprehension for people, and generate so that's kind of examples. And so in this tutorial, we would like to talk about some applications and talk about some unsolved challenges, and we would review what is the solutions right now in current stage in previous works, and we would like to point out promising directions for future works. So the main goal of this one is aiming to uncover the merits and the drawbacks of current methods. So first, let's talk about the applications. For example, recently researchers in NVIDIA proposed an AI-based video compression method. Their compact key point representation enables a video conference system that achieves the same virtual quality as the commercial H.264 standard, while only use 1/10 of the bandwidth. Besides, they also show their key point representation allows the user to rotate the head during synthesis, which is useful for simulating a face-to-face video conference experience. This result It's not perfect, but it's quite amazing because it can achieve like very good results in video compression task. And also another big advantage of this one is like AR VR display. For example, like
That's yeah,
for example, uh, the researchers in Facebook describe the first approach to animate parameter models in real time, which could deploy it on commodity virtual reality hardware using audio. Or the generated avatar can be used in Oculus like AR hardware or like video games as well. This is the fundamental setup for like future AR VR telepresence. So let's see the results over here. You can see that it's purely generated from audio and eye tracking, and they can synthesize this avatar.
I I don't like cook with other people. I do like have full control. Yeah. So when I cook, I always ask all my family, just go do whatever you want, just rest. Yeah.
And similarly, um, so let's talk about the challenges, right? There are wide applications and why the task is not well solved right now, because there are several challenges. The first, the main difference between still image generation and video generation is the temporal dependency modeling. So there are the most important reason why it imposes additional challenges is that people are very sensitive to any pixel jittering, like temporal discontinuities and subtitle artifacts in a video. Like for example, in this synthesized video, you can clearly see that in some regions, uh, it's like the pixels are actually jittering over the temporal axis. You can see it's not stable, and you can clearly see this is like fake videos because those pixels are like moving, right? And and also the second challenge is that um, the avatar itself, we actually, there are a lot of occluded region and the complex head pose deformations. For example, the deformation of talking head consists of individuals' intrinsic subject traits, extrinsic camera positions, and head movements and facial expressions, which are actually highly convoluted together. And this complexity stems not only from modeling face regions, but also modeling the head movements and the background and those kind of informations together. So this is a very complex system. And also the third challenge is that when we generate those videos or images, how to generate realistic and controllable images. For example, 3D dimensional multiple face models, which is basically 3D model, or for like control over like semantic parameters, but lack of photorealistic when rendered, and only model the face interiors, not other part of a portrait image. For example, hair, mouth, and background, those informations. And their synthesized images is not realistic, right? And there's a clear domain gap between the synthetic image and the real world images. So although it's like controllable, right? We can control the illumination, the expression, but it's not realistic. On the other hand, like recently, like generative adversarial networks have become an emerging topic in deep generative models. For example, researchers in NVIDIA propose a StyleGAN network which can generate photorealistic portrait images of face with eyes, teeth, hair, and the context like neck, shoulders, background. But the problem of this work is that it lacks of rigid like control over semantic face parameters that are interpretable in 3D, such as like face pose, expressions, and the scene illuminations. For example, in this example, we can see that uh, on the top of it is the source image B, and on the left side is the source image A. And you can see that when they generate the images, this boy is generated boy with with the color of A. However, it also changes the appearance of this boy, right? It does not look like this boy anymore. And similar like other examples. So although they can generate high quality images, but it's not controllable. Basically, they cannot control other. They cannot disentangle other features while they try to when they change one feature. So that's the problem. And another challenge is that how to generate synthesize the movement with other modalities. For example, when we generate videos from audio, right? Basically, we want to use audio to drive the avatar. Then the most important thing is generate accurate mouth movements, which is synchronized with the input audio. However, this problem is still unsolved. For example,
everybody, at a time when we turn the page on one year and look ahead to the future, I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for everything you've done to make America stronger these past 8 years.
Liebe Mitbürgerinnen und Mitbürger, ich grüße Sie herzlich. Ich freue mich über die Gelegenheit, Ihnen auch an diesem Silvestertag einige Gedanken zu sagen, die mich an der Schwelle zum neuen Jahr bewegen.
So, for example, in this example, also the facial movements is quite good. I mean, it's plausible. It looks like pretty good. But however, the problem is that if we look at the mouth itself, it is we can say it is kind of synchronized with the audio, but it's not accurately aligned with the audio itself. So if you want to do lip reading on this synthesized video, it is impossible because it's not accurate enough. So this problem is still unsolved. And the other example, for example, we talk about the solutions that how to solve those problems. So first of all, we are going to talk about the pixel jittering problem, how previous papers solve those pixel jittering problem. So first of all, on the left side, we can see this is a standard approach for talking head generation, and the way of this one is they utilize the skip connections to solve the pixel jittering problem. We know that deep generative networks, they have tons of parameters, and every time when you generate one single image, for example, even it's adjacent frames, the parameters could be different, and it would introduce some small difference in every frames, which is basically pixel jittering problem. And the solution of this one is that rather than directly generate encode it and decode it, it utilizes like skip connections. It have, for example, it have skip connections for like in the early features of the reference images, and concatenated with the very late layers in the decoder. And in that way, the decoders not only accept the new informations, but also accept some like previous reference informations from the reference images. Then basically the output images would be pretty stable since it consists of two parts. One is the new information and one is the reference images. And this is actually this is skip connection offers a highway between the synthesized image feature and the reference image feature, which can mitigate the identity mitigate the pixel jittering problem during the encoding and the image decoding stage. However, this skip connection structure is sensitive to which layer that people apply to it. If the skip connection layer is applied too early or too late, it may decrease the network performance. And another way to improve the is to solve the pixel jittering problem is using the image mapping function, which has been explored in many recent works. This is shown on right side. So specifically, we compute the final output image with this kind of equation. So the A denotes an attention. This is basically tell you like which region you need to change, right? For example, if it's so basically the reference image is the IR, right? So for example, if the A is large, the A is large means that this place you don't need to change at all. You can just copy the pixels from the reference image. And then if the A is small, for example, near 0, this means that this pixel need to come from the new images, like the synthesized region, and then it finally get the output. So basically, this image mapping function would applying this image mapping function in the general, the result pixel from the reference image can partially stabilize the video quality. However, we also have some problems in this attention mechanism, especially, for example, it does not perform well when we and even introduce artifacts if it's not like well aligned between the reference image frame and the target image frame. Due to, like, for example, large deformation caused by head movements or other problems. So we attribute this problem to the like poor composition ability of the linear image mapping function when solving the misalignment between the reference image and the target image. And the third solution to the image, the pixel jittering problem is using recurrent network structure. So the major difference, as we talked about, that the major difference between the image generation and the video generation is the smooth transactions between the adjacent frames, since like people are like sensitive to any pixel jittering problems. And the recent works model the temporal dependency to achieve smooth facial transaction across time. Specifically, for example, Song et al. They propose a recurrent generator that considers the temporal dependencies at the generation stage, and a spatial temporal discriminator that judges the synthesized video as a video level at the video level during the discrimination stage. We can see that when they generate each image frames, they actually go through this recurrent structure, so that all the images, all the synthesized images are also conditioned on previous synthesized images. So this is a way how to alleviate this pixel jittering problem. Also, they have a video level discriminator, which basically this not only judges the image quality at the image level, but also judges the quality at the video level, so that, for example, if it's not stable, does not look like a video, it's say fake, right? So this is also some approach to partially solve this problem. And the second, then we talk about the solutions for the second problem, how to solve the occluded region and the complex post-deformation. So we know that different images may carry different appearance features and have different degrees of relevance to target images. So besides enriching identity features, as they lost several layers of an image decoder, like some existing works that utilize multiple reference images to mitigate this problem. So the solution is that we know, for example, for human face, right? When we provide reference images, we cannot provide every views, like every possible views of your face, right? This is not feasible. We can only provide like limited frames of the reference images, which cannot cover all the deformations or the occluded regions. So very recently, some remarkable realistic results has been demonstrated by the few-shot embedding structures. Like for instance, like Wang et al., they predict the network parameters, the scale map, and the bias map of the spatial adaptive normalization block proposed by another researchers of the generator. So specifically, we can see that when we generate the videos from the input modality to output videos, we actually can have like different samples of the person to few shot to learn it in a few shot way, so that it can learn the complex post-deformation and occluded region in this few shot stage. And similarly, researchers in Samsung also embed the reference images to predict the parameters of adaptive instance normalization layers in the generator. So for example, you can see that they also want to generate the output image from one modality. So the solution is that they actually learn those embeddings from this kind of embedding networks, which actually embed some reference images to the adaptive instance normalization parameters. And this few short setup can enable the network to generate high quality results. So comparing with non-few shot methods, the part of network parameters of the generator coverage is converges much faster to the state of the to generate the realistic and personalized images using few shot methods. And the third problem is how to generate a controllable and a realistic generation. This is a very new. Those are very new works. I think they published in 2020, all of them. So the depth side is proposed by Deng et al. So they proposed an approach for face image generation of virtual people with disentangled, precisely controllable latent representation of identity of non-existing people. For non-existing people, expression, pose, and illumination. So they embed 3D priors into adversarial learning and train the network to imitate the image formulation and analysis, 3D face deformation, and rendering process. To deal with the generation freedom introduced by the domain gap between the realistic and the rendered images. So they further introduced contrastive learning to promote the disentanglement by comparing pairs of generated images. And on the right side, this is another work proposed by MPI group, which also utilized the idea of combining 3D graphics prior knowledge with deep generative models. So their idea is simple and effective. So they just combine the style game with the setup of 3D multiple models. So they propose the first method. So specifically, they propose the first method to provide a face rigid like control over a pre-trained and fixed style game using a 3D model. So a new rigid network RigNet is trained between the 3D semantic parameters and the style game's input. So the network is trained in a self-supervised manner without the need of any annotations. At testing time, their method generates portrait images with the photorealism of style game and provides explicit control over the 3D semantic parameters of the face. And next, we are going to talk about some unsolved problems. For example, this image mapping function, as we talked before, it still have some drawbacks. For example, when the reference image and the target image is not well aligned, I mean, it's impossible, right? I mean, reference images, when your head moves a little bit or have a large deformation due to the facial expressions, right? We would have some misalignment between the reference image, target image. And if we use this kind of linear image mapping function, we can clearly see some we can clearly see some artifacts, right? It may introduce some artifacts caused by misalignment, especially in the videos with apparent head motion. You can see the eyes over here and also the edges. You can only see those examples. Probably it's not apparent in a video, but if you zoom in, you can clearly see those artifacts which would affect the visual performance. So this probably is still unsolved. This is not good. So some researchers, rather than directly do this applying this image mapping function on the reference images, so the researchers in NVIDIA group, they actually first warp these reference images using the optical flow between the reference image and target image, and then they do this image mapping function. So they use optical flow to warp the reference image to align the target image. So that can mitigate the problem, but has not solved this, but does not solve this problem. And then the second problem of this one is similar, is that although we can generate pretty realistic talking avatars, but actually it's not that well. I mean, if you look at the details of the synthesized video, you can clearly see some artifacts, and it's not realistic, and it's not good, and some artifacts even it's like quite apparent, and it's not. So this is the example proposed by, this is a method proposed by NVIDIA group, and you can clearly see that those hair region is not moving along the head, and the movement is not like consistent overall, right? I mean, in the whole video. So this is still not good. I mean, and the image resolution is very low also. So those are some other problems. And the third problem is lip sync problem, which is the most important problem in this task itself, because most of the works are used for avatars, especially talking avatars. But actually, lip sync problem is a very hard problem. The previous works has not solved this problem yet. For example, when we flip the video with real video and fake video frames, and you can clearly see those difference. I mean, if you compare the synthesized video and the ground truth video, like side by side, it maybe looks realistic. But if you compare it in a flip fashion, you can clearly see the results. For example, so in the first one is the ground truth video, and in the second column is the synthesized video. And you can see that if you compare it side by side, it looks good. But when we flip it between the ground truth frames, you can clearly see that the lip movement is not accurate. Okay. The next unsolved problem is the data biased problem. So we know that we need tons. So currently, most of the approaches are like data-driven approach, and there is one problem which is being being ignored by other researchers is that the data bias. For example, I studied the different, I studied the distribution. Basically, it's only the head post distribution of different public data sets. For example, this liberating in the wide is large in the wide data set using which is basically BBC News data, videos, and similar as the liberating sentence data set and the work celebrated 2 data set, and the CREMA-D data set and the Alpha is lab controlled data set, and the Alpha set is basically the Alpha speech data set. And you can see that one apparent bias is that, for example, in the pitch X, most of the head posts are like in a 0 dimension, and it's only like a 25-degree difference, right? You don't have data in other degrees, and similarly as YAR X, you can see that different data set contains different YAR X range, right? Especially the lab control data set, it has a very small range of head rotations. And also the motion. So we also studied the motion of the data set. You can clearly see that some data sets, it's only contain very small range of the motion. So in this problem, this data bias problem would limit the performance of the network model. It limit the performance of the model itself, because your data set is biased to those kind of head posts, and then your network would only perform well on those kind of head posts and does not perform well on other on other head posts. So, and similarly, researchers also find that in recent works, they also find that they can, when they generate controllable images, for example, they can generate a happy face with smile, happy face, and they can turn neutral face to happy face. However, they cannot turn neutral face to sad face. The reason is that they train on some public face image data sets, but the problem is that when those those photos are proposed are posted online, and people usually post happy smile face when they do when they have a camera photo. So in the data set, it's biased to those happy face, and people are not willing to show their sad face, cry face in the picture. So their network cannot output good results when the researchers ask it to output sad face. So this is also a kind of data bias problem. So this is also, so how to solve this data bias problem using the network modeling. It's designing the network structure to solve this data bias problem is also unsolved. So there are several takeaway messages we want to show. One is that combining deep generative models with 3D graphics and prior knowledge is a way to output high fidelity, controllable, and stable talking avatars. The second one is that few-shot learning can improve visual qualities, in a very fast and short time. You only utilize limited frames and limited time resources. You can output a high quality, a person-specific model using the few-shot learning. And the third one is that some researchers, they also find that audio is not the only source modality that correlates the visual dynamics. For example, your visual dynamics also partially affected by the emotion of the person. For example, when you are happy or when you are sad, also it's the same audio, but the visual dynamics may be very different. Also, you have like illuminations and other problems will also correlate with the visual dynamics. So yeah, basically this is all. Thank you everyone. And if you have any other questions about this tutorial, please email me